Loneliness, once considered a private shadow, has now emerged as a glaring global crisis, according to the World Health Organization. Recent findings published in the esteemed journal Psychological Science point out that young people, the very heart of our social species, are drowning in solitude. The study, which involved participants aged 13 to 103 from over 20 diverse countries, reveals that loneliness peaks sharply in young and older adulthood, while decreasing in middle age. A pervasive sense of isolation is not just an emotional ache, but also interferes in our daily lives, adversely impacting health and well-being. In light of this, and to raise awareness, to find answers, the New Indian team reached out to top psychiatrists and mental health experts, and here is what they said.
Young people are more and more prone to loneliness because their need for belongingness has not reduced. As the need for belongingness remains and the need for togetherness remains, two things happen. One, impulsive formation of relationships happens, relationships which are short-lasting, which are not continuous. So the narrative is not shared for a long period of time, and because the narrative is not shared for a long period of time, there is still a sense of loneliness. The second thing that happens is that apart from this lack of continuity in relationships, is that there is a lot of a competitive, transactional nature to the relationships. कि भाई तू मेरे लिए क्या कर सकता है, and if the transaction is not happening, people are isolating themselves further, and people are looking at the benefits and losses of relationships too soon and too early on. So the relationships are more give and take relationships, and in give and take relationships, your sense of loneliness increases.
Today's youth, especially which are living away from families, physically or mentally, tries to find out somebody to be maybe in a romantic relationship. Usually it doesn't solve their problems. Sometimes what happens that as you said, that they tries to skip from one relationship to another very quickly. What you have to say about this and how to tackle that?
Well, I think it's a process, in every time, in every era, the perception of time changes, right? So for example, in my age group, the perception of time was very longitudinal, that if you were in a relationship, one relationship would last your lifetime. Now, the relationships are short term, because again, you are judging and assessing what you're getting out of the relationship too quickly. And that is leaving you with a sense of loneliness and a sense of lack of continuity. Short-term relationships are also arising out of a lack of postponement of gratification. We want whatever we want it right now. And if we are not getting it, then we are not willing to input into the relationship to wait for a long-standing relationship.
They have many of the options today. Since we are living in the social media age and we have too many options, we can opt for such apps which provide you to connect with people.
True that there are more avenues of meeting up and meeting up with the objective of a short-term relationship.
Right.
Objective of these meeting up on these apps is not a long-term relationship. The objective is, one, to check people out.
Okay.
Second, to get a significant positive feedback immediately. And third, possibly to look for physical intimacy.
A dating app has added up a feature that says that you are looking for a relationship, short-term relationship, or just casual relationship.
These features are just ways of selling the app more. If you were to look at, let's withdraw from the current phenomena of the apps. What do human beings need, right? Human beings need a sense of togetherness. Human beings need a sense of acceptance of each other. Human beings need a feedback so that people can evolve and further. And people need to create. Why do people need to connect? To create common memories which they can go back to when they're feeling lonely.
Okay.
There is no memory created through that process of that relationship. And because no memory is created, you do not have a narrative that you can stay with. and that creates loneliness.
People who are very away from the family's love, or they do not get the love that they're supposed to from their families and are away from them, are more prone to it.
Families have become sometimes too enmeshed, and sometimes the boundaries have become too diffuse. So the families by itself, the definition of family has changed in India. It is difficult to say whether the family is the same nurturing environment. Criticism happens in the family, hostility happens in the same family. So the sense of belonging that used to come from a family is not there anymore, right? So even within families which are caring and nurturing, sometimes the level of expectation that people have from each other could be so high that you can feel isolated and not feel empathized within a family as well. The reality is that people can be lonely even if they come from families which are attached to each other, because sometimes attachment can mean enmeshment.
Since we can't escape from the social medias, that the generation there where we are living in, but still, how can we tackle this problem, this loneliness?
I think it is extremely important to shut the screen down sometime. It is extremely important to move away from the FOMO that we all live with. A significant part of our loneliness comes from being competing in nature. I think through our educational systems, we need to build in skills of empathy, skills of forming relationships. We need to nurture things that happen in communities and in networks. We need to stop using our networks to gain something all the time. We need to move away from give and take relationships rather than bartering a sense of immediate like or an immediate smiley or an immediate emoji on the social media. We need to move away from that. We educate ourselves about how social media is about cloning and targeting people rather than about forming relationships and networks.
This generation is really very prone and affected by the Western culture, as we say, and many of the OTT platforms that serves such culture, which influence us to skip relationships, or this is the new symbol of coolness.
I think that's an old hack. There's not too much difference between the Western world and our world anymore. Our experiences are becoming more and more similar because of use of technology.
Does social anxiety, depression, it has something to do with loneliness, as today is the world of competitiveness. Everybody is living in it, and we also face people who have some specific nature, introvertness, some are extrovert.
There is this pressure to be putting yourself out there, marketing yourself, being on the Insta, being on Snapchat, waiting for and getting likes. There is this pressure to be this person that you're not. Introvert is not pathology. Extrovert is also not pathology. There's nothing bad about being introvert or extrovert. Right. Even introvert people have very strong relationships, and even extrovert people have very strong relationships. So this whole thing about it cannot be again divided into introvert and extrovert. What is happening is that there is a short-termism. It is a world which does not wait for memories to be created.
Other than empathy, generally what people could do until that doesn't happen in the education system.
I think recognizing that sense of belonging is a strong need, and reaching out to people for just being with people rather than there being a token transaction between you and the person.
You mean for the benefits?
Rather than being friends with benefits, being with people for the sake of being with people, listening to people for the sake of listening to people, understanding people for the sake of understanding people, would be a good starting point for any person who is feeling lonely within themselves. And sometimes accepting loneliness as a part of yourself, and then trying to find networks, asking for help, because sometimes loneliness might be part and parcel of a hidden depression that you haven't been diagnosed with.
Sometimes people don't know that they are lonely, even when they are.
I think we're confusing the word depression depressed here with a lay use of the word. If you're having a low mood, if you are feeling that you do not reach out to people, if you're feeling that you lack interest in everyday things, that you're not able to enjoy, then it could be, and if this lasts for more than 2 weeks, it could be that you are clinically depressed. Loneliness is slightly different than that. If you have a sense of emptiness, if you have a sense of vacuum, if you want to be with people and you're not being able to be with people, you could be lonely, and this could be more chronic.
Sometimes trauma has to do something with it, and sometimes people even try to connect with people, they can't. What's the cause of it? Is it depression or something else?
It could be multiple things. It could be depression, it could be past trauma, it could be lack of opportunities, it could be a lack of skill to relate with people, it could be a lack of opportunity to relate with people, it could be a fear of rejection. Any one of these, and if it's been there for a long period of time, it's useful to seek out help.
Thank you so much, doctor. You shared very useful insights for our viewers. Something that you would like to add in the end?
I think it's very important to recognize that mental health is still, unfortunately, either seen as a glossy thing, a glamorous thing that some people need. Some people think of mental health problems as pagal to nahi ho gaya. It's very important to fight the stigma against mental health. So don't feel as if you're alone. There is always help available. Reach out and seek help.
WHO has recently identified loneliness as a global crisis. But talking to doctors and our friends, families may help. Thank you and keep watching The New Indian. This is Nishu Shukla with video journalist Ritu Rawat.